Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee on Thursday, the 10th of February. I'm Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. I represent Banbury West Ward and I'm the chair of the committee. If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who has registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of 4 minutes. You will be timed and I will confirm when 4 minutes runs out. You should then tie up. Please come forward to the microphone and press the speak button, introduce yourself, and from that point you will have 4 minutes. Voting will be undertaken by the electronic system. The outcome of the vote will then be confirmed by our legal officer, Geordie, once complete. Okay, I'll begin with some housekeeping. If you have mobile phones switched on, please can you put them onto silent? If you need to use the facilities, they're in the foyer. And if we have a fire alarm, which we're not expecting, the fire exit is behind you. Okay, hand sanitizer, if you wish to use it, is scattered around the room. And if you wish to keep your masks on, you can do. But if you wish to take them on, off, that's up to you. Okay, if I can now start with introducing ourselves. I will start with the young lady on my left.
Good evening, Jodie Ingram, Senior Solicitor.
Good evening, Councillor Mal Donoghue and Vice Chair of the Committee.
Charlotte Lynch, Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening, Councillor Caroline Moon, and I represent Buckshaw Worden.
Good evening, Councillor Gareth Watson, Camp Green, Gregson Lane.
Good evening, Claire Hunter, Councillor Claire Hunter, Banbury East.
Chris Lomax, Councillor Whalley-Dale East.
Councillor Phil Smith, New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor Harry Hancock, Broad Oak Ward, Penwilliam.
Good evening, Councillor Barry Yates at Salisbury and Waltons.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor John Hesketh, represent Longton and Hutton West.
Good evening, Councillor Mary Green, Councillor for Moss Side and Midge Hall.
Good evening, Councillor Colin Sharples representing Earnshaw Bridge Ward, and I'm standing in this evening for Councillor Flannery. Thank you.
Good evening, Janice Crook, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Catherine Lewis, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Chris Talby, Development Planning Team Leader.
Okay, thanks for that, everyone. So I do have apologies for absence from Councillor James Flannery, who is being substituted by Councillor Colin Sharples. Thanks, Colin. And I also have late apologies from Councillor Will Adams, who's been called in by the NHS. And we have a late sub, Councillor Kath Unsworth, who is running slightly late. She will be joining us later. Okay, item number 3 this evening. Do we have any declarations of interest? Okay, no, all right. Item number 4, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of January. I'm happy to propose these. Councillor Smith?
Second those, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can we go to the votes on the minutes? If you weren't at the meeting, please abstain.
The minutes have been approved.
Okay, thanks very much. Item number 5 this evening, we have no appeal decisions, so we'll move straight on to item number 6, which is land. Land west of Lancashire Business Park, Centurion Way, Farrington. Janice Crook, if you will present this item for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so outline approval's been granted, which established the principle of development of this site together with its access. So this reserve matters application relates to Farrington Hall Estates, which is located off Centurion Way in Farrington. The site is adjacent to the Lancashire Business Park, which lies to the east, and to the west are residential properties, and to the south is the Tomlinson Road Industrial Estate. So the site is allocated for employment use under policy E1, Site G in the local plan. This excerpt from the local plan shows how it relates to other land use allocations. The crosshatch is existing employment areas, and the red is housing land allocations, which are under construction, nearing completion. As reported on page 33, section 9.1 of the report, Site L was allocated for housing and acted as an enabling development to help bring this employment site forward. So in terms of surrounding land use, residential properties to the west are located on Bispham Avenue, Riverside, Brookside Close, Mill Lane, Meadowland Close and Morley Croft, and are all on the opposite side of the River Lostock. There are new properties on Grasmere Avenue development site to the east, and to the south are residential properties on Hall Lane, Bluebell Wood and Summerfield. So outline approval was granted by Planning Committee at the 15th of January 2021 meeting and established the access and the principle of development of up to 56,904 square metres of light industrial within the EG use class, general industrial within the B2 use class, storage and distribution within the B8 use class, and ancillary office accommodation, together with the means of access. All matters were reserved apart from the access. So this is the indicative master plan which was submitted at outline stage, which demonstrated how the site could be developed. So this reserved matters application provides details of the scale, layout, appearance and landscaping for part of the site for a building of up to 51,794 square metres within use class B8 with ancillary office space and associated works, including car parking and servicing areas. The area in red is not part of this application and will be subject to separate reserved matters application in due course. Sorry, this slide isn't very good, but it just shows the elevations. So the proposed building will measure 295.5 metres long by 160 metres deep and 22 metres in height, and will be constructed in metal cladding in a palette of greys. So this is an excerpt from the site section plan, which demonstrates the relationship between the properties on Bispham Avenue and the River Lostock, the existing bund and the proposed building, just to give you some context. And this is just another section through, again, demonstrating the relationship with residential properties. A number of objections have been received in respect of the size, scale and proximity of the proposed building to residential properties on the opposite side of the River Lostock, and this is reported on page 13 of the committee report. This is a photograph taken from the site looking towards the existing bund and trees which run between the site's western boundary and the River Lostock. And this photograph is just taken from the top of the existing bund, looking towards the closest residential property. So, since first submitted, the plans have been amended to improve the relationship. The building has moved to the east and the northern elevation has been reduced to achieve a 50-metre spatial separation distance to the residential properties at the closest point. Additional landscaping will also be provided, with the existing trees retained to help soften and screen the proposed building. Members will recall at outline stage, the building heights plan was submitted, which demonstrated development of between 15 metres and 30 metres in height. Whilst it is acknowledged that this building is of substantial scale, With the amendments and additional screening, on balance, it's considered the size and scale of the building proposed is acceptable, given the parameters approved at outline stage and recognising that this is an allocated employment site. So, as I mentioned before, access to the site was approved at outline stage, and the southern access road from Sustainability Way has been constructed following the discharge of pre-commencement conditions. Sorry, the northern access road, sorry. So the access road leads to a staff car parking area and a 62 truck parking area. So objections have been received from residents regarding the access road in terms of noise from HGV vehicles accessing the site 24/7 and headlights. This photograph is taken from the access road looking towards properties on Bispham Avenue. The access road is 80 metres to the closest residential property, and the proposals have been amended to include an acoustic screen fence with climbing plants along part of the access road and the car park. This will help mitigate against vehicle noise and glare from headlights. It must be reiterated, though, that the access has already been approved at outline stage. So, if you can see the blue line there, that shows the location of the proposed acoustic fence. And then along here, that's a 2.4 metre high close-bodied fence. So noise would also come from the operation of the site, and Environmental Health have advised that it will be 2 decibels above background noise at weekends only. Noise guidance on the gov.uk website states that noise starts to have an adverse effect and consideration needs to be given to mitigating and minimising those effects, taking account of the economic and social benefit being derived from the activity causing the noise. So noise is reported at section 9.9 starting on page 38 of the report. In this case, the level of noise is considered to be adverse, but this is in line with relevant guidance and not to a significant level, and therefore Environmental Health do not object in terms of noise. Air quality is reported at section 9.10 on page 40 of the report. Environmental Health initially had concerns as this current proposal they consider is significantly different from the outline proposal. However, it must be recognised that the master plan submitted at outline stage was only indicative, and the means of access was the only detail applied for, with all other matters reserved. Following confirmation from Lancashire County Council Highways that the traffic assessment submitted at the outline stage was for a quantum of development, not specific vehicle trip numbers, and that the building proposed is within the parameters established at outline stage, Environmental Health are now satisfied, providing suitable mitigation measures are provided to address the damage costs associated with the development. The air quality assessment and an addendum note submitted at outline stage included those mitigation measures. Condition 12 was imposed on the outline approval, requiring that the development be carried out in accordance with the air quality assessment and addendum note, and therefore it must be accepted that the mitigation is already approved. Within the site, there are public rights of way. The proposal includes footpath improvements to provide a 3 metre wide shared footpath and cycleway running from Mill Lane to Centurion Way, and also an emergency link between the 2 parts of the development site. A letter on behalf of the British Horse Society has been received advising that DMMOs, or definitive map modification orders, have been submitted for the Mill Lane to Hall Lane public right of way. So Lancashire County Council's Public Rights of Way team have confirmed that the new surfaced width of footpath is 3 metres, the same as required for a bridle way, so acceptable should the DMMOs be successful. The Public Rights of Way details have been agreed as part of a discharge of conditions application, and the footpath diversion will be done under Section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act. Flood risk is reported in Section 9.11, starting on page 41 of the report. Flooding was a concern raised by residents and the Environment Agency at outline stage. The EA therefore required conditions to be imposed on the outline approval. The applicant has submitted details as part of this reserved matters application, which proposed a different drainage scheme to that considered at outline. The proposed scheme includes the deculverting of an existing watercourse and flood attenuation basin. The applicant has submitted technical details to the Environment Agency together with modelling, and the EA confirmed that if the modelling is considered to be accurate, an accurate reflection of the flood risk on site post-development, then it should show no increased risk to areas both on and off site, and should also show an improvement to the overall flood risk. However, there are some remaining issues still to be resolved, such as when and how the old culvert is to be sealed off and the new channel to take the flow of the watercourse from, and whether or not any water quality monitoring is required at the point where the new channel discharges into the River Lostock. If the Environment Agency are satisfied, there will be no need for any additional conditions. As this matter has been ongoing for a number of weeks and may take a few more weeks for the Environment Agency to complete their review of the modelling, the recommendation tonight is for the decision to be delegated to the Director of Planning and Development in consultation with the Chair of Planning Committee upon agreement of the technical details with the Environment Agency. This will prevent the need for additional pre-commencement conditions to be imposed, given that the Environment Agency and the applicants are close to resolving the outstanding matters. It is recognised that the proposal represents a substantial building in terms of size and scale and proximity to residential properties, and its use has the potential to cause some noise and disturbance. However, this must be balanced against the benefits of the scheme. The proposal brings this brownfield and contaminated site into employment use and provides for around 1,000 job opportunities. Noise and air quality can be mitigated against. Additional landscaping includes around 516 new trees, the formation of a biodiversity-rich area around the proposed sustainable drainage attenuation pond, the deculverted watercourse and improvements to flood risk, not only on the site but for the wider area, and the upgrading of the public rights of way to a 3 metre wide combined cycle path. It's considered that the benefits of the scheme outweigh the limited impact, and the application is recommended for approval, with the decision being delegated to the Director of Planning and Development in consultation with the Chair of Planning Committee on the successful agreement of the technical details of the deculverting of the watercourse with the Environment Agency. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for a very detailed report, Janice. I do have 3 members of the public wishing to speak in objection to this amended application. Do I have a David Pemberley, please? If you'd like to come to the table, you press the button that says speak, introduce yourself, and then you have 4 minutes to speak, okay? Thank you.
Good evening. It's quite hard to picture how high 22 metres is, so I like to imagine a double-decker bus. No place a second double-decker bus on top of the first. No, a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. This is how high this building is, 5 double-decker buses. It will then stretch from where we are now all the way down to the pharmacy on West Paddock. Now imagine this building 50 metres or half a football pitch length away from residential properties. I'd like to quote South Ribble's local plan policy G17, which states, "The proposal does not have a detrimental impact on the existing building, neighbouring buildings or the street scene by virtue of its design, height, scale or proximity. Furthermore, the development should not cause harm to neighbouring properties by leading to undue overlooking, overshadowing or have an overbearing effect. This development fails to comply with multiple parts of this policy. It's too big, too high, not in keeping with the area, and will have a massive overbearing effect. The developers feel it's acceptable that planting over 500 trees that are 40 centimetres high and will never grow high enough to hide this as suitable mitigation. How can that be so?" Second point, the developers put a lot of claims on the benefits this development will bring as a reason for its size and the damage it will cause. The main claim is the number of jobs this will bring. Looking on Caddick's marketing brochure for the development, it highlights as a positive that the average wages that can be achieved from this warehouse will be below the local and national averages. Furthermore, a quick search on Indeed.com for warehouse jobs within 25 miles of Leyland indicate there are over 1,000 current available opportunities. This highlights two things. Jobs in this area are not being filled in the local area, and there's an oversupply of logistic premises in the area. Central Lancashire's employment skills supplementary planning document paragraph 5.4 states, "A considerable portion of employment available in Central Lancashire is in the lower skilled jobs. Additionally, indicators show that employment growth in Central Lancashire is in sectors requiring higher skills." And finally, local policy section of the above SPD wants to improve skills and economic inclusion by working with existing and incoming employees to identify skill shortages. This development will only add to the problem of too many low-skilled jobs. It will bring few high-skilled jobs and fail to address the skill shortage required for Central Lancashire's growth. My final point, South Ribble has the largest number of air quality management areas in the whole of Lancashire. 3 of these are within 2 miles of this development, and the nearest is only 3/4 of a mile away. 2,000 vehicle movements per day will come from this warehouse, and a significant number of these will be goods vehicles. I'd like to quote South Ribble's Air Quality Action Plan. "Emissions from HGVs are disproportionately higher than from cars and other small vehicles, and in areas with large numbers of freight journeys, they typically contribute to a significant proportion of the local total emissions. Therefore, reducing the number of goods vehicles, increasing efficiency, improving the fleet and redirecting HGVs from areas of poor or potentially poor air quality will help to reduce the harmful effects from the elements of the general traffic throughout South Ribble. This warehouse will only add to the problem of South Ribble's air quality. We need to be reducing the number of HGVs on the local roads, not increasing them." Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Pendlebury, for your presentation. Do I have a Michael Scott, please?
Hello, I'm Michael Scott, resident of Bispam Avenue, Farrington, Moss Leyland. The point I want to bring is you're breaking previous planning law. The conditions you lot have put in place for the waste plant to be put where it is. You've got the chimney stacks got raised from 12.5 metres to 25 metres high, so you could get dispersal. They have to do that, so any other building near it could not be higher than it, else you will not get dispersal for the waste plant. That's all there. That's your planning conditions. You've put them in place for our public health. You'll be breaking it. If you put a building that's the same height virtually as those chimneys, you will not get dispersal. The waste plant will not meet the regulations. It'll lose its permit. That's the first fact. Secondly, your access road that you're putting in, you should have been told on outline planning that there are previous planning conditions on that. We've got a 20 to 25 metre bund with trees on it to protect us from the waste plant, which has got a one-way system Now, you've put a road on the opposite side of this, so all the noise from that road will bounce back at us 24 hours, 7 days a week, and you're going to put a 2.5 metre fence up. It's not going to work. You're breaking your own planning conditions here. It's planning, is it legal law? You're breaking it. You're not being told of South Ribble planning the full picture. It's wrong. Secondly, we've got the bund there, we've got the landscaping, one-way systems, and all this is to protect us from noise and light pollution so we can sleep. The waste plant's got limitations on its times, and they are 7:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, so we can sleep. We don't have to listen to wagons, people reversing beepers. We've got a one-way system on that waste plant, but you're going to put 25 loading bays in. That's 25 wagons reversing in every day, night, whatever. I get a text message on my phone from Amazon. Your package has arrived at 3 in the morning at our depot. Will I be hearing it through my window? Can I sleep when my window's open? I won't be able to. You've put all this in place to protect us from the waste plant, and now you're building roads on the opposite side of bunds to protect us. Why? You've not been informed properly, so I suggest you throw all this out now. It's nothing like the outline planning. It's a totally different beast. It's massive, and it's a 24-hour distribution centre. None of you would like to live near that, and we shouldn't. We've got a quality of life we want to keep, and you've tried to do that with the bunds and the previous applications. When the waste plant were built, we lost our TV signals, FM signals, DAB signals, AM signals. They had to come, raise all our aerials up to get it back. And the bloke said to me, I've got it here. If it was any closer, you'd never get your TV signal back, because we was in the line of sight of Winter Hill, and it hits the building, goes up, comes across, comes down, and you get your picture back. If this is going to be that close to residents, they'll never have a TV again. They'll never have DAB, anything. I'm not saying don't build there, but this is unbelievable. You've all been hoodwinked here. All of you. I tried to get in touch with Caddick Developments to be engaged in this. Nobody come back to me. At least with Waste Plant, we was involved. They said to us, Rick, we've got a meeting here. We're going to do this. What do you think about it? What we've done now, we're chasing these. Oh, you've got to register for this. There's nobody here. We're working from home. All my residents don't even know how to get onto a computer to complain about it. So that's why you wouldn't have had all the numbers. If it were done properly, fine, but this hasn't been done properly. And especially, one other thing, what I'm really peeved about, LCDL, which is Lancashire County Council Developments Limited, in it, they've sold a ransom strip for that road. So, Keep Motorhomes, one of them, has bought a ransom strip from LCDL for this access road here. So obviously they've been said, right, you can build your houses there, you buy this ransom strip off me here, and we'll put this plant there. So it's already a done deal. It's corruption. It's wrong. So I'll go down the legal route with it. I've had enough of this. It were bad enough at Waste Plant, but to put us through this, I don't know how you can do it. I really don't know. None of you lot would like to live around it. I know that for a fact. We've had to put up with this.
4 minutes, Mr. Scott.
Yeah, but
4 minutes.
And one more thing, I'd like to say, I don't want you to vote on this, because I think you've got a vested interest. Because I've read it in the thing, you were talking about moving the watercourses with them. Is that right? Oh, well, that's what I thought. I thought you'd been involved in doing some sort of watercourse. Well, okay.
And if I wish to vote, I will vote. Well, I don't have a vested interest whatsoever. Okay, so your 4 minutes is up. Thank you for your objection.
Can I leave you this? I've got the proper facts here for this.
We're not allowed to look at anything that the applicant hasn't.
All right, leave your legal documents for yourselves.
Okay. Thanks for your presentation. Do we have a Graham Hunt, please?
Hello, Graham Hunt, resident on Bispham Avenue. I've got a couple of things I'd like to say. One's about the height of the building and the stacks from the waste plants. Obviously, before they built them higher, we used to get all the smells because it used to go in the dip. But by building a massive building next to it, it's just going to sit there in between the two buildings, and there's quite toxic stuff come out of the waste plant. So I'd hate to be going down the middle, where the wagons are and stuff. The second point is the access road. When I spoke to the county council, apparently the only bit there bothered about was when it come onto Croston Road, because that's the highways. The rest of it's all County private, so they weren't concerned about the access coming into the site itself, just where it went onto Croston Road. I'm not very good at public speaking, you might be able to tell that. Where the access road is, because they've just got the ransom strip, they can't put any planting around it, because they don't actually own the bits between the houses and the actual road. So all we've got is like an 8-foot fence and, like I say, a massive bund the other side. So all the noise is just going to come towards us and the light pollution. So that's the two main things, is the size of the building and the exhaust waste, you know, coming from the waste plant, being stuck there and not being able to disperse. Also the aerials as well, you know what I mean? Because when they built the waste plants, I had to move from mobile provider because I couldn't actually get a signal in my house with the provider I had, because it used to stop my signal. So I can only imagine it's going to get worse when they build the new building. So I don't know how the people that are going to be behind it, if they're behind the tower that's furthest away, are going to get a signal, because it is actually massive, you know, the building. That's all I've got to say, really.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hunt. Before I bring in councillors not on committee, Janice, would you like to address any of those, apart from the fact that I haven't got a vested interest? No? With nothing to add? Catherine Lewis?
Thank you, Chair. Just to address some of the concerns that have been raised by the residents. With regard to the height of the building, yes, it is acknowledged that it is a high building, and to provide a little bit of context, the Dr. Oetker application that's been recently approved and constructed is about 15 metres in height, so that will enable some of the councillors to be aware of development that has been approved that's kind of a similar height in terms of the landscape and character of the area. This particular building sits behind a bund with trees on, and I understand your point about the trees and the new planting and them being slightly smaller. However, those existing trees have got tree preservation orders on, and they will provide that screening that Janice showed on the section to demonstrate the relationship of the housing, the bund, the trees, and then the building. With regard to the concerns about the employment and skills details, there is a condition on, I think it's the outline application, with regard to information that has to be submitted and agreed. And as part of this application, the employment skills plan has been consulted on by our external consultants, and they are satisfied with that detail. And it does explain in the report that the case officer, Janice, did go back to our consultants about that and requested further information. So that kind of is seen as acceptable from their perspective. In regard to the air quality, the environmental health officer has looked specifically at this, and you can see that from the responses that are made within the report. And again, as case officers, they have consistently gone back to the concerns that have been raised. They've clarified the numbers of transport and trips that would be associated with the development, and looked at that in relation to the air quality. And the environmental health officer is satisfied and is not recommending any reasons to refuse it on the air quality. And then with regard to the points about the noise and the light pollution from the development, again, revisions were requested and the fencing has been provided. I think it's about 2.5 metres that Janice explained on the slide, that will mitigate against that headlights coming into the site. And when you go on the site, the access road that's currently having been constructed, it goes down and round, and therefore the fencing will mitigate against the concerns for the lighting. With regard to the ransom strip, I'm afraid I can't comment on that. And I think there was another point made about noise, and again, the environmental health officer is satisfied with the proposal and we've had another conversation with him today, and there are no officer reasons to recommend refusal for it on those aspects, particularly the noise and the air quality. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Catherine. Councillor Karen Walton, if you'd like to come and give your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. And thank you, Janice, for your very detailed report. I fully support proposals to develop areas in the borough to provide employment and job opportunities for South Ribble residents, and especially bringing forward brownfield and previously contaminated sites within the borough following the South Ribble Local Plan E1. But development has to be in the appropriate area and of the appropriate design. Outlining planning approval granted for the principle of development of this site in January 2021 provides for a different scheme to the one that's been submitted tonight. This land does meet the criteria for using brownfield and contaminated land, planting of a substantial amount of trees and ecological landscaping, and is consistent with the aims of Policy E1. And I accept that there is a need for industrial and commercial buildings, but I do not accept that a super-sized unit of this size and height should be built on this particular site. The proposal to construct one massive building, the length of approximately 2.5 football pitches and 22 metres high, with associated office space and car parking for around 600 cars and 62 trucks on a site that borders on significant residential areas of the borough, will be devastating to local residents. Even the Global Renewals building, which has had so much impact on local residents, was built only 15 metres high. The negative effect of this development on the residents of Bispam Avenue and surrounding areas, and impacting the new development off Grasmere Avenue, will be overwhelming. Too large, too high, overbearing development, only 50 metres from residential homes on Bispam Avenue. National Policy 17, Design of New Buildings, and Local Plan Policy E1, Site G in the Local Plan 2015 states planning permission will be granted if the proposed site does not have a detrimental impact on the existing buildings, neighbouring buildings, by virtue of its design, height, scale, orientation, plot density, massing, proximity, and furthermore, the development should not cause harm to neighbouring properties by leading to undue overlooking, shadowing, or have an overbearing effect, which I'm afraid this development will have. The application for approval tonight, in my opinion, contradicts all these planning issues. The applicant has listened to some of the concerns of local residents, and as a result has amended some of the proposals by moving the building from 30 metres to 50 metres from residential homes, and will construct an acoustic fencing to offset noise and light pollution, but a 2.5 metre high acoustic fence will not stop the constant noise and light from HGV vehicles and cars accessing the site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and will lead to noise, light and air pollution to local residents, and will have an adverse effect on their health and well-being. Residents will not be able to open their windows or sit in their garden, and it will even affect children sleeping at night with all the noise. The Global Renewal site has strict conditions imposed on traffic times so as not to adversely affect residents. So the same conditions, in my opinion, should be imposed on this site. United Utilities have concerns over the amount of service runoff water from the high amount of tarmacked areas caused by this development, and this undoubtedly will affect and increase the height of the River Lostock running through the site, which is already prone to flooding in this area, resulting in local residents' property being flooded. These are only a few of the concerns I and the residents have. I ask the committee to consider the application very carefully tonight, as the impact of such of the construction of such a monstrosity of a building used 24 hours a day will have on the residents' health and well-being. The
4 minutes, Councillor.
Thank you.
4
The
minutes.
environment and flooding in the area is not acceptable, and I ask you to very seriously consider the concerns of myself and the residents. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Walton. Do we have Councillor Stephen Thirlborn via Teams, please? All right, Councillor Michael Green, please. Can we keep it to 4 minutes, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'll endeavour to do my best. Can I begin, Mr. Chairman, by declaring personal non-pecuniary interests? One, as a parish councillor for Farrington, who I understand have raised an objection to this development, and secondly, as a member of the LCDL board, which was referred to earlier, being a county councillor. The matter of LCDL is not relevant to this evening's discussion, this evening's application, and I don't need to declare the interest. I understand as I'm not on the committee. I'm just doing that for completeness. Mr. Chairman, the site has been included in the local plan as an employment site for many years, and the proposal does offer a number of benefits as set out in the report, and in particular for new jobs for the residents of Farrington and across South Hibble. And in those regards, there's a lot going for this development, and it's something which I would support. And in principle, I don't object to an application on this site. However, Mr. Chairman, as some of the residents have said, and as Councillor Walton very eloquently put it just a minute ago, we've always got to look at the appropriateness of the development, of the size, of the location, etc. And we can't just approve them because it's a site which has been earmarked in the local plan for development. And this is what causes me significant concern with regard to this application. It's the size, the scale and the height of this building which will be significantly overbearing upon local residents. Mr. Chairman, colleagues, around 16 years ago, the then County Council applied for permission to build the Farrington Waste Plant. Several objections were received, including the proximity to residential properties at around 200 metres and the height of the building at 15 metres. Indeed, we as a Borough Council objected to the proposals. But the proposed development this evening is actually much closer to people's homes than the waste plant, at just 50 metres away, and is much taller, with the height being some 22 metres, or as the first gentleman very well put it, the height of 5 double-decker buses. Colleagues, if approved, the current proposal will have a significant negative effect, I would submit, upon the amenity of many of South Hibble's residents that we are all elected to represent. I would urge you to consider rejecting this proposal and allowing a different design to be brought forward for consideration in due course by this committee. And I would strongly ask you to look at that as a way forward this evening. However, if the committee is minded to approve the application before you this evening, I would then urge you at the very least to impose significant additional conditions to protect residential amenity, which first and foremost should include a restriction upon the hours of operation of the building and in particular the hours of movement to and from the proposed site. I'll leave it with you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, for your careful consideration, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Councillor Green. Right, we have the applicant's agent, Nick Pleasant. If you'd like to come forward to the microphone. Good evening. If you press the speak button, you have 4 minutes to make your presentation. All right, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the Planning Committee and also officers for their detailed report on the application. As introduced, I speak in support of the application on behalf of the applicant, Caddick Developments. Caddick deliver industry-leading, best-in-class developments and have a proven track record of realising technically complex sites such as this where others have failed to do so. This BRIAM excellent development will regenerate sustainably located brownfield land for much needed employment uses. It will create upwards of 1,700 jobs, 600 of those immediately during construction, with a further 1,100 jobs and £40 million economic output per annum and business rates of £600,000 per annum when the unit is operational. The jobs created will be in a sector that pays above average wages in a variety of roles, with an increasing focus on professional and technical jobs as well as those within head office functions. This unit will also attract high-value companies who occupy for the long term, which provides certainty on job creation and job retention in the local area. The agreed local employment and skills plan means the benefits will be realised locally and retained locally. There is significant unmet occupied demand for units of this type, but a critical lack of supply across the northwest and particularly the M6 corridor. This puts significant pressure on Greenbelt, therefore sites such as this before you are absolutely critical to supply. The considerable occupier interest means the site can be delivered almost immediately and could be operational by mid-2023, and as described, CADIC has discharged various pre-commencement conditions and we are implementing the access. Overall, this represents significant economic investment in what remains a very challenging economic climate. As you were and has been described, the site is allocated and benefits from outline consent. Therefore, key matters such as the principle of development, the quantum, access, highways, air quality mitigation, tree replacement and flood management are all agreed. The proposals are presented following thorough pre-application and public consultation, both at outline and reserve matter stages. Since the outline consent in particular, we've written to 950 local homes and businesses and invited comments. We have listened to those comments and revised the plans accordingly. This creates a further improved development over and above that already supported by committee at outline stage. We are now deculverting and realigning a watercourse, as officers have described. This delivers greater flood resilience, greater flood management, and benefits both this watercourse and the River Lostock, the principles of this being agreed with the local authority and the Environment Agency. The layout delivers benefits for our neighbours above and beyond those that outline. For example, the buildings previously in the more sensitive northern part of the site have been removed. A single service yard is now proposed, which is located away from residents, and there is greater scope for boundary and acoustic fencing as has been described. A sensitive lighting scheme maintains ecologically dark corridors and ensures neighbours are not impacted from light spillage. The additional landscaping proposed will include mature trees at the outset, which provides denser screening of this development and the global renewable site. Excuse me. There is significantly enhanced tree coverage and landscaping across the site, with over 500 new quality trees and 40,000 shrubs, as has been described in the officer report. This far exceeds the removal of existing poorer quality specimens, and overall this delivers major ecological and biodiversity gains, in addition to the 4.5 hectares which has been set aside specifically for ecology and open space, and this will be managed appropriately. The proposals also include full details of a new pedestrian cycle routes, which is a tarmacked and lit section of the Leyland Loop delivered at no cost to the public purse. Overall, consultees and officers are wholly supportive of the application, and the Environment Agency fully support the open watercourse and associated benefits that delivers. In summary,
4 minutes, Mr. President, if you can tie up, please.
This is a high-quality development which responds to site context and delivers a range of significant economic and social gains. We respectfully request that members follow the clear and robust officer recommendation and approve the application. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Before I open up to committee, Janice, do you any additional? No. Catherine?
I'd kind of just like to make the point about the County Council's waste plant that's been referred to a number of times, really. I mean, it is acknowledged that is further away than this proposal. However, by virtue of it being a waste plant, it was a County Council application, and the kind of impacts associated with that may well have ensured that that was further away from this proposal, whereas this proposal is for warehouse, storage and distribution, which is slightly different than the waste plant. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Councillor Mrs Green.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I've been here tonight and I've listened to all the residents and all the concerns, and I can fully appreciate the upset that they've got, because I know that area quite well, and I know how many years they've been struggling to live a normal life with the issues that the waste plant has caused. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for employment. I'm the first one to say we need jobs, apprenticeships, opportunities for young people to get employed and to get on the employment ladder, and I'm all for that. But I just feel that this application needs some more work on it, that perhaps the developer could come back to the council and work with the council to make a more attractive application that would, yes, bring employment into an employment area, but also be more sympathetic for the poor residents that have got to live with this. My main objections from what I can see this evening are obviously size, scale, noise, pollution, impact on the wildlife and flooding. Whatever is said tonight, the residential properties will be affected by the height and the proximity to the properties, especially Bispam Avenue and a good chunk of Croston Road, what I call the Pylon Estate, and some of Grasmere as well. They'll be affected by overbearing, loss of light and impact on their amenity, which are three good reasons for turning this application down. The cladding will be grey, we're told in the report. That's wonderful. That's really going to blend into the countryside. A pale grey building. That's really of that scale, how it's going to blend into the countryside. The staff car park and parking for 62 trucks and 573 car parking spaces. Imagine the movement of traffic, of trucks, cars coming in, trucks going out, etc. From what I can gather, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's going to be noise, pollution, traffic impact on the start and end of the working day. Yes, there's acoustic fences which are going up, but them in themselves are an eyesore, and they won't screen or stop the noise from a 16-foot, 44-ton vehicle, which I've read in the report is what some of the vehicles may well be. The unit's going to be over 20 metres in height, and how many years will it take for those trees to grow to cover that height? Traffic will cause a gridlock on Croston Road roundabouts and Leyland, which already has an ACMA in place for excessive pollution from HEVs. So do we need this amount of HGVs more in the area? As has been previously said, the hours of work need some control on them, because you've got forklift trucks reversing by noise, lot trucks with reversing aids, which are all noisy. And, you know, late at night, people expect and deserve a good night's sleep. We've not been given any details of the type of usage of this distribution centre, which is reminiscent of the waste plant, which we were given no indication of what problems it would cause. And it was all honky-dory and going to work marvellously till we started getting the odours, the smells and all the other problems coming from it. There will be pollution from floodlights, because it's got to be floodlit if it's open 24 hours a day. Going to be pollution from floodlights, air pollution from the HGVs, and emissions from all the vehicle movements entering the nearby properties. To me, yes, we need the employment, but not at the risk or, shall we say, removal of the quality of life of the residents. I do feel at the best we should defer this for further consultation with the developer. If we could get a better plan and more comfortable for the residents. If not, I propose we refuse it. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Green. Thanks for your presentation. Thank you. The agent, Nick Pleasant, you said you'd like to answer any questions. Would you be willing to go back if we deferred and speak to the applicant to maybe tweak this application, i.e. the size of the application, or not? I'm sorry, no. Yeah, no, it's for us to speak to him. Sorry, Mr. Scott. Yes, yeah, come forward. Basically, what Councillor Green's asking is, could you tweak the application if we deferred, if we do, and her proposal is if we don't defer, she's going to propose refusal.
I'm happy to have a conversation with my client post committee should committee wish to defer, and we can review the points that have been raised.
Yeah, but you will come back to a further committee in the future, not
Yes, no, I understand that we would come back to committee.
Okay.
For the deferral this evening.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Councillor Green, you heard that. So do you propose deferral? Okay, and...
Sorry.
Sorry.
Better sort of things for the residents.
Okay.
It's a happy medium.
So you'd like the applicant to go back, discuss this application with the residents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then come back to yourself,
And then come back to
or the
us.
officers, and
Come back
discuss
to
it and see
committee.
what you can
Councillor
do.
Yates. Thanks, Councillor Green. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've just a few concerns. I do agree with deferment. I'll go through them just as I've put them down. Wi-Fi, TV, digital signals. With this building too, have we checked it out that these signals will be able to reach the properties? And if not, are we going to put a condition in that if it is built, that the Wi-Fi and signals are piped in underground, because we cannot take that kind of signals away from residents. I wouldn't think so anyway. The 2 decibels above the limit, is that above the recommended limit? Because if so, then we see on a lot of applications, like especially with fracking, that 42 decibels is it. And if they went half a decibel over, then that would throw it out. So if you could answer me on that. The other one, which I thought was very important, the resident said, are the legal, well, I'd like to know, are the legal documents that the resident referred to in this pack, in this agenda pack?
Catherine, if you'd like to.
Yeah, well, and I've just one more, because I might as well get them all off my chest at one go. And the other one was, well, it's relating with the digital signals and that. We have with local plan, which Councillor Watton was correct, policy E1 local plan, development impact over bearing effect. Now that we should take note of, because it is in with local plan, and there'd have to be real special reasons to go against the local plan. But if you could answer them questions, then I'd be happier moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. As your Wi-Fi, I don't think the Wi-Fi will be affected by the height of the building, because there's so many Wi-Fi stations knocking about. But the rest of it, I will pass over to Janice or Catherine.
The noise 2 decibels is above the background noise level. So there's different sort of criteria that they set. Adverse impact, but it's only when it becomes a significant adverse impact. So my understanding from the environmental health officer is that it would be noticeable, but not to a point where it would be classed as significant to affect lives. So it's 2 decibels above background noise level.
Councillor, the chairs. Well, because the chair's answered one and Janice has answered the noise.
You also asked about policy E1.
That was tell me I can have a Wi-Fi signal from a weed.
Councillor Yates, with the greatest of respect, I don't think our planning officers are experts in Wi-Fi.
Anything. Not being able to reach our residents, you know, and especially in this day of technology, everybody should have that technology to their fingertips. So the question is on that is, if this building was to go ahead, and we could not get, and it was proven that we can't get the signals through, would these signals be, would there be a condition put into this that the residents would, the application make sure that all residents had full Wi-Fi, full digital signals, either piped in or whatever, because we can't take that away from them. So that was a question on that one. And the other one was, which I thought is important, where the resident fetched up about the legal documents. Are the legal, have we got that information in this agenda now, in this report? And and what is that legal if we haven't? And I'd like to know what it is. And you've answered the one with the, we're all right because I'm using that Wi-Fi with E1 local plan. Working hours I am concerned about as well, because there should be some respite for residents on the times of working. And I know this is a 24-hour working, because it's a distribution centre, but there should be some respite somewhere. In my mind, I'd be thinking, if there wasn't, are we going to build it? Are we building it in the right place? Should it not be closer to a motorway and put onto another piece of land? So if you can just answer them for me, Catherine, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chair. With regard to the Wi-Fi and the ability to get that signal, I think what you're saying is that every resident has got the ability already. Well, as planning officers, we wouldn't have that information, and it wouldn't be a material planning consideration in terms of checking to see if all those residents had that facility. Now, in terms of the county council building that was provided, in terms of the plant, the waste technology park, that was a number of years ago, wasn't it? And we all know there's quite a few masts within the borough that have gone up to provide that extra ability for Wi-Fi connections to be enabled, that using your phone and things like that. So from our perspective, that isn't something we haven't looked at, but that isn't necessarily a planning issue for us to have looked at in terms of this application. With regard to your concern about, was it the allocation of the employment land under E1 of the local plan? Okay, I think you raised the concern about the impact of the air quality, wasn't it? And how that, well, had that been?
Sorry, Chair. Really talking about the height of it, because I were taking it in with the digital signals and that, which would be stopping it from
okay,
reaching.
so in terms of that, I think I've answered that point in terms of the Wi-Fi and the ability for the residents. With regard to the issue about the allocation in the local plan, the site is allocated for employment land, and it does say in the text that it has potential to provide additional employment land. The site adjoins the main arterial route, and it is relatively close to the motorway network at Curedon. Its size, shape, topography and availability make it suitable for employment land. So from that perspective, again, we don't have any reasons for refusal from other officers in terms of the air quality and the noise associated with the 24-hour distribution centre. The environmental health officer has considered that, has considered the details that were submitted as part of the application, and has not raised that as an issue. or requested a change to those hours that have been put forward by the applicant. So in terms of this application and as officers, in terms of this application and officers, we've assessed it on that information that has been provided, and we have no objections from any statutory consultees. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Councillor Yates, do you want to come back to that?
Just a quick one. Thanks to that, Catherine. I do understand what you were saying, but if it does go for deferment, I'd like to see that the applicant does take this into account, and he does put it on a condition that if this application did go ahead at this site, that all the residents would be safeguarded at the expense of the applicant, under a condition that all the digital services were fully retained by the residents.
Noted, Councillor.
Right.
All right, Catherine. Okay. I mean, my knowledge of Wi-Fi isn't massive. However, the residents of Bispam Avenue will get a signal beamed from one mast to another to bypass the building, but that's just my knowledge of Wi-Fi. Mr. Scott, I gave you 4 minutes. Please, could you... I'm just answering the questions of other committee members, all right? If the applicant's agent or the applicant would like to look at it first, they can do, but not this evening. Okay, they could look at it first, then with their, if the deferral came back to committee with their goodwill, they would then allow us to have a look at the paperwork. And right, okay, all right, Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think to move forward, I will agree with the deferral, and maybe the queries that have been put forward could be rectified before it comes back. Yeah. So that's my opinion, Mr. Chairman. So deferral.
Okay, thanks very much for your forthrightness as usual, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, we all know that the principle of the development on the site is well established in the local plan, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think the residents have already agreed that the principle of development it is agreed on there. But we're now looking at the size and the scale and all the various other areas, which is not agreed. And can we just go back on there to the indicative master plan, of which was voted on in, was it January 21? Can we just go back to that, please? Okay, so the indicative master plan that was voted through is there. I don't know whether there's any height. I can see the scale of some of the buildings, which is significantly less than the buildings that building that is proposed. Is there any indicative heights within there? Am I supposed to see that?
Yeah.
Was it 15 metres on the original?
This was 20 metres, 25 metres, 30 metres. That was the building heights plan.
The building height plan was what, sorry?
This here, what can you see the?
Yeah.
That was 20 metres, 25 metres, 30 metres.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Smith?
Not completely. Yeah, I could see
does
where
matter.
it is, but it's not a very good outline of what it is, and I think that's what
So it's 20, 25 and 30.
has been
Between 15 and
envisaged, if you like, with regard to protecting the residents along Bispam Avenue and the other avenues off that area, that maybe developments that are closer to them would be a lot lower, and then there would be a gradual increase in size of the building as it got further to the waste plant. The indicative master plan, of course, there's no way that this application appears to me to actually fit in with a master plan. I've always been told that the master plan is the defining document, and on that defining document it shows several buildings which are a lot smaller than the one big building that we've got now. Am I correct in that? Not, there we go. Yeah, that shows 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings. The big building at the bottom is moving further and further away from the areas that we're talking about. So as far as I can see, the application we've got before us doesn't wholly fit in with the master plan that was passed in this planning application. So I'll listen to what other members have to say, but I have to agree about the overbearing nature and the size and the scale of what we're looking at. Is really appalling, to be quite honest. It's very near to people's back gardens, just across the river, and I do know the area pretty well, I have to say. But I'll listen to what other members have to say on that, and I might just speak again, Chair. Thank you.
Catherine, did you want to come back on that, or Janice?
Yeah, Chair. This area here, which is roughly the area of the proposal now in the reserved matters, was for 20 metres. This area was 15 and this area going up to 25. So the outline established and the outline, the master plan was only indicative, illustrative, just to demonstrate how the site could be developed. It wasn't, there was no scale, size, or appearance of anything. It was merely outline to establish the principle of development and the access. The building heights plan did show this area 20 metres. So the proposal now is what, 2 metres higher than what was agreed at the outline stage.
Apart from the lower level at 15 metres or something,
Yeah.
is it? Yeah.
But
So what you're saying, it's an indicative master. It's an indicative master plan, not a master plan. Therefore, it carries no weight. Is that what you're saying?
it was just to demonstrate how it could be developed.
Okay, I'm going to vote against this.
Okay, Councillor Yates.
Yeah, I think we could chew on this all night, Chair. I'd say we should move to the vote and let it come back to us in a different format.
I'm quite prepared to chew on it all night, as long as we come to the right decision. I mean, well, we've had a proposal for deferral from Councillor Mrs. Green. We've had a seconder, Councillor Hesketh, but then we've had an amendment made by Councillor Phil Smith for refusal. Do I have a seconder for refusal?
Yeah.
I don't have a seconder for it. Go on, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I could just come back. Okay, I will go for deferral, but I would guess that the application we've got now, which is quite comprehensive in its detail, that the applicant here has got a client, and this is to fit in with the client's plans, and I would have thought amending those plans could be very, very difficult. And what would we say? Half the size that it is now? Well, it just wouldn't happen, would it? And I think there lies the difficulty. But that's up to the agent to have a discussion with his client, I should think, and bring something back to this committee, having discussed it with the residents. So I will go for deferral, Chair, again.
Okay, all right, Councillor Smith. Just bear with me, Mrs. Green, please. Councillor Mrs. Green, sorry. We've been here in the past where the applicant hasn't discussed anything with the constituents and we've gone to deferral. The applicant's gone back and they've had a one-to-one conflab with the residents, and they've come back and they've come to an agreement and they've come together, and that's all we're asking the applicant to do. And maybe you can come to some middle ground. I mean, this application has already been granted. We're voting on reserved matters here. So one way or another, the application has been passed and we're just doing reserved matters. So I'll tell you what then, have you withdrawn your...
I will be voted for deferral, Chair.
Right. Do we have anyone wanting to vote in favour of this application? Anyone? So we've just got the one vote then. Okay. So we're going to vote for deferral electronically. So, oh yes, Councillor Mrs Green, quickly please. This is the last one. This is the last one.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. As you've rightly said, and as Councillor Smith has said, it's going to be quite difficult because we don't really want the applicant to come back with another application for odd little piddly things being altered. It's the scale, the size and the overbearing and loss of amenity of the residents that we're mostly concerned with. So myself personally, I've proposed deferral because I want a significant improvement that will help the quality of the residents' lives. Okay, that's all I want to say.
Right, so what I would suggest to the applicant is you go back, speak to the residents and considerably reduce the height of the building. Okay? Would you be happy with that? What I would do is have the conversation outside, not in the chamber, if you will. Thank you. Right, so we're going to go to the vote on deferral electronically. If you are in favour of deferral, press the for button. If you're against, press the against. Thank you. Okay, Jodie, if you can give us the result of that vote, please, on the deferral.
Members have unanimously voted to defer the application for the land west of Lancashire Business Park, Centurion Way, and it has been deferred for the applicant to go back to the residents to discuss some of the issues that they've raised tonight, including the size, the scale, the position, the building, the noise, the pollution, the light, the hours of operation, digital services, and vehicle movement.
All right. Okay, so that's the end of item 6 on tonight's agenda. We are going to have a 2-minute recess, ladies and gentlemen. If you just come for item 6, if you'd like to, if you want to leave, you can do. Or if you'd like to prolong the pain, you can stay for item 7. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, swiftly moving on. Item number 7 this evening, Unit 7, the Capital Centre, Capital Way, Walton Dale. Chris Sowerby to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. An update sheet has been circulated with slight tweaks to the wording of this, the varied condition tonight. The application relates to a vacant unit within the Capital Centre Retail Park, designated under Policy B5 of the local plan. The unit was most recently occupied by Fab Sofas, but is subject to a restrictive condition on food retail from 2007, when it was occupied by Tesco Home. The proposal is to increase the permitted area of food retail up to 980 square metres, which would account for about 30% of the unit. The nature of the business of the prospective occupier, Home Bargains, is wholly different to food retail stores. Officers are satisfied that such a store operating with restriction of up to 30% floor area for food retail would not constitute a food retail outlet, which would be in breach of Policy B5. The proposal would bring a long-term vacant unit back into use with employment opportunities. There are no objections from any statutory consultees, and the application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Short and sweet, thanks, Chris. Right, I don't have any registered speakers on this application. I don't have either of the ward members. I have... Yeah, but you're on the committee, Councillor Yates, if you haven't forgotten. I do have the agent, Danny Simmons, via Teams. Good evening, Danny. Can you hear us?
I can, and hopefully you can hear me and see me as well.
Well, you're actually blowing the roof off of you, Danny, but if you'd like to present, you have up to 4 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Danny. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Danny Simmons. I'm from RPS. I'm a planning consultant, and I'm acting for the Royal London UK Real Estate Fund, who are the owners of the Capital Centre. And like your officer, I think I can be fairly brief. As you're aware, the unit is currently vacant, and it's now been vacant for approaching 4 years. Those who are familiar with the centre will recall that the unit was previously occupied by Tesco Home Plus and then by Fab Sofas. Royal London have been working hard to secure a tenant for the vacant unit since Fab Sofas vacated back in June of 2018. As you will appreciate, this is a very challenging retail market, and of course made much harder by the pandemic. But the good news is that Home Bargains have agreed to take the unit. Although Home Bargains sell primarily non-food goods, they do sell a relatively small range of food and drink items. And accordingly, they require an amendment to the goods condition so as to enable them to use up to 980 square metres for the sale of food. And this equates to roughly about 1/3 of the ground floor area. In terms of the condition, just for the avoidance of doubt, home bargains do require the slight tweaking or the revision to the condition as set out in the update sheet. And the reason being for that is that it would be difficult for them to define the precise area for food and drink prior to trading, and accordingly any change to the store layout that would need to go, that would be undertaken post trading, which would require a further revision. So it is the condition that as is set out in the updated sheet that with respect we'd like you to consider tonight, please. In terms of justifying the change and so as to comply with your local plan, the application submissions have considered both retail impact and also the sequential test, and we've been able to satisfy those issues. And in addition, we've also addressed the traffic implications, which, as agreed by the County Highways Officer, are acceptable. But in short, by making what is a relatively modest change to the goods condition, this will firstly enable an empty unit to be occupied, and secondly, and hopefully you will agree very importantly, it will have the consequential benefit of jobs. And in this connection, Home Bargains anticipate employing a total of 110 staff, which will include both full-time and part-time posts. So that is it. Hopefully you'll agree the proposal has merit, and thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Danny. We'll now open to committee Councillor Claire Hunter, and then I have Councillor Caroline Moon, and then Councillor Chris Lomax.
I move for approval. I know the area very well. It will bring jobs in the area. There is car parking spaces, and the good thing, it brings variety to the retail park. So I definitely move for approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Moon.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to second that proposal. My only issue, really, when I saw this come forward was what Preston City Council were going to say about it. In terms of the test, that was our issue last time we looked at this site. You've got to make sure, I think we got to make sure, never mind it being planning conditions and planning law, you've got to be a good neighbour, because we're going to want to push back when it's our turn. So pleased to see that Preston are happy with it. The fact that they've been struggling since 2018 to try and do something with it, it's got to be a good thing, hasn't it? So I'm happy to second that proposal.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Moon. Councillor Lomax, and then Councillor Yates.
I was going to second it. Obviously, it's already been seconded, even though I am terrified of being dragged round there on a Sunday morning. I would still see it go through.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Lomax. Councillor Yates.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is in my ward, so I thank the councillors from other wards for supporting what's going on in my division and my ward. This unit's been empty for 4 years. It's going to create employment, and we welcome Home Base down into Waltneydale. Home Bargains down into Waltneydale. And I'll leave it at that, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Yates. Now I know it's in your ward, I might vote against. Right, do we have any other proposals apart from approval? So I've got Councillor Hunter moved approval, seconded by Councillor Moon. No other proposals. Let's go to the vote, please. Okay, Jodie, could you tell us what the result of that vote is, please?
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of Unit 7, the Capital Centre, and that's approved with conditions in the report as amended by the addendum.
Okay, thanks for that, Jodie. Welcome to South Ribble once again, Home Bargains, another great addition to our retail park. Thank you. Thanks, Danny. Okay, moving on to item 8 this evening. It is done by Preston. Church Road at Bamber Bridge. Chris, if you would like to present the application.
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to the Dunbier meat processing and distribution facility within the Walton Summit Industrial Estate. The sections of the site subject to this application comprise of existing buildings and areas of hard standing, as shown highlighted in red on the plan on the screen. With the exception of a 15 by 20 metre triangle of hard standing that is previously developed land within the Greenbelt, the wider site is allocated as employment land under E2 of the local plan. So on this plan here, I've taken across one of the red triangle on the previous plan just to show where the new lairage building is going to go. And within that, you can see a very small green triangle. So that is the one part of the application, the wider application site, that is within the green belt. This application marks the third phase of an investment, modernisation and reconfiguration programme. A replacement lairage building and new beef chilling unit are proposed in addition to an extension on the existing processing building and roof lift on the refrigeration building. So this is the building which is currently single-storey flat roof, that's to have a roof lift. This is all infilling, and this is the new replacement lairage building. This is a hide shed that was previously granted by Planning Committee at the back end of 2020, and as part of that there was a substantial area of planting as well. So this is to come forward shortly. That was phase 2, and this is all of phase 3 development. All materials are to match that of the existing, with no part of the proposal being any taller than that of the existing development. The proposed replacement lairage building would be in appearance and indistinguishable from agricultural buildings commonly found on farms. It is the view of officers that the small section of the proposed replacement lairage building that would be within the Greenbelt would not have a greater impact on the openness of the Greenbelt and complies with the requirements of Policy G1. The proposal would not result in any additional traffic. There are no objections to the proposal from any of the statutory consultees. For these reasons and those contained within the report, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the imposition of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Chris. I don't have any registered speakers on this application. I beg your pardon? If committee members are quite happy, if you'd like to come to the mic and give us 4 minutes. I did ask you all, didn't I? You all happy? Yeah? Yeah. Come on. You are a resident of the borough after all.
Yeah. Yes, I'm Brian Needham. I live just approximately 80 metres from Dunbier. There are only 4 properties, which is the nearest to Dunbier. Just going back to our concerns, mainly our concerns are health and safety. Going back to in the past, Dunbier was headlines of that, sorry to say, which is an pneumonia outbreak at the site, which put 4 people in hospital, including a pushback rider on the A6. And we want to know what precautions Dunbier are taking regards to this, being that they're doing a big chilling plant.
I think I don't think that's got any bearing on this application.
Just follow up your bike, because going past it, you might say that. Yeah. Noise. Yeah, we lived there over 30 years. When it was British Beef, very small unit. Now it's gone 4 times its size. It's a mega building. with an average of 30 to 35 trailers parked around the site at any one time. Now, we asked on 2018, when the last extension was proposed to you all, which you all passed, that on a condition that we have 24/7 electric hookup on this site. We're still waiting for that, because we have lately complained about the noise only just before Christmas. And let me get this right, the Environmental Agency is not the South Ribble we have to complain to. It is Dunbier comes under a different remit. Since 2010, they're under Dodway Environmental Health Agency, because the buildings are so big, they control that. And if you go to the Dodway and talk to Mr. Lee Collins, he can give you a string of complaints regarding noise and smells, which even they have complained about, because they're directly opposite Dunbier. So what I want to say is I want this implementing on this particular application. Last time I think it was proposed and seconded by you all before, but it's not happened. I'd like to ask Chris why it hasn't been. As far as I can gather, on this particular site, there are a minimum of 32 electric hookups. And at any one time, they're all supposed to be being used. But if you look at our complaints, at 3 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, we're constantly even going across to security, trying to get them to put a wagon, because believe it or not, even though we have the A6 and the motorway near to us, after 10 o'clock at night, it's very quiet around there. You'll need to have one of these units running, and it's really noisy. It echoes across. So we really get the brunt of it. And that's without our windows open. God help us in summer. Another subject is the smell. This new lard. As far as I'm concerned, in some months we have terrible smells from this particular site, like dead corpses. Does that highlight how bad it is? So it is dead corpses, really, when you think about it. And we want to know what is going to help us against this smell, or whether they take any precautions for doing this.
Okay, that's 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for your presentation. Thank you.
But I want this proposal put in this time, if you would, please.
Okay. Well, the committee have heard. Chris, would you like to make any points answer any points that have been risen by the objector?
Health and safety, that's obviously a matter for the Health and Safety Executive rather than South Ribble Borough Council. This application, it's not one for expansion. They're not increasing capacity on the back of this proposal. It's all about modernisation, making the site more efficient, and also improving the areas that the animals are housed in or rested in. Paragraph 1.9, that summarises the concern or the objection that was raised in regards to the use of electric hookups, which was a condition on historic permission on the site. Now it's been alleged and not disputed that it's been breached over the years purely for operational reasons. They didn't have the space within the site to chill all of the meat. This application goes some way to addressing that by providing additional chilling space. The question has also been asked to the applicant, and they've confirmed that the site has recently been taken over a number of years ago, and the company that operates it now, they're now pursuing avenues of energy efficiency, and they've signed up to the Science-Based Targets Initiative. So as part of that, going forward, electric hookups are only going to be used That's what the applicant has stated. I think if I'm not sure if the applicant's dialed in or here this evening, but I mean, the committee, if they wished, could always go down the avenue of potentially imposing an additional condition to see that that's sought, the use of electric hookups, if they wish. In regards to smells, that would be investigated as a potential statutory nuisance, but again, the development, it's no closer than the existing, it's modernising the existing facility. That's all I've got to say.
So let me get this straight. With increasing capacity, there'll be less traffic.
There is no increase. They are not increasing the volume of animals entering the site. It's storage on the site. So what they're providing is additional storage space within the site, which means that they don't have to rent areas, refrigeration space off-site. So there's less traffic going to and from because it's all contained within the site. It comes in, it stays there, it goes out, it doesn't come back and forth.
All right, thanks for that, Chris. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The application before us is for a chilling unit, and I don't see a beef chilling unit creating the existing problems that there are or that have been mentioned this evening. So as far as I'm concerned, we don't take the noise and smell into consideration. I'm sure that this is done under environmental health. It is a much needed facility in the area. It is used by a lot of the local farmers, and it does cut down on travelling distance for livestock, which is very, very important these days, Mr. Chairman. It is a well-established unit, and I will go along with approval for the chilling unit, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Hesketh. I have Councillor Yates, then Councillor Moon.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought Councillor Hunter, being the ward councillor, had to come in first, but I'm willing to go ahead before. Right. On this application, it's got a long history, as I'm sure that most members know. I've been on for 30 odd years, but we've had problems for over 20. Firstly with British beef, and then K-Pack, and now with this one. We have problems with noise. We have put stipulations in place, which we did for K-Pack back in 1998, which we put in that all vehicles should be using the link-ups, electric hookups on the site. I think that is a condition that we really should strongly go to implement. The reason why I'm really going strongly on this is because residents have been ringing up. They're telling me that they ring up, not like before when K-Pack had it or British beef, but they ring up and they don't now get any response back. And when environmental health comes along and says and goes to this to Dunby, then they be quiet for about a month and then start again. I would move approval, Chair, but with a condition that we put a condition that all vehicles loading and unloading at that site must be hooked up when they're loading and unloading. There should be no vehicles running with the donkey engines on, keeping the refrigeration going, because they should be all supplied now. These buildings should all have the electric hookup. So I do need a strong condition on there that we can enforce to make sure that there is enough hookups for the electric for each vehicle that's going to be loaded and unloaded on the site. That we make sure that this company has a travel plan so that they don't overspill with the numbers that are coming in. They say they're going to have less movements, so I'm sure our officers could monitor that. So we want to take away all the reasons why that they could say that they're going to run the donkey engines in the middle of the night and keep all the residents awake. This is not my ward, it's Councillor Hunter's ward, but it is my division as a county councillor. That's why I'm speaking on it, Chair. So I'll move approval as long as we put with the condition that all vehicles must use the electric hookups. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Yates. I've got Councillor Moon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a bit lost, Chair. Can you just humour me? Has Councillor Hesketh moved it and Councillor Yates has seconded it? Is that where we're up to?
Well, from what I gather, Councillor Yates has moved approval of the application that you have in front of you.
Yeah.
But then Councillor Yates has moved approval with his conditions.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm with it.
So you can start with
where I am.
Yeah, whichever one you want to start with. Start with them.
Okay. Well, I'll start by saying thank you to the residents who've come and spoken, and I want to say that because it takes some to come and speak publicly, doesn't it? But also then when maybe residents think that maybe I haven't listened or I haven't heard, because what I'm going to go on to say is that some of the things you've said we can take into consideration. Some of the things you've said will sit outside of this planning application, but it's evident to me listening tonight that there are issues and some significant issues. And I think it's very fortuitous that your ward councillor, one of your ward councillors, is sitting here tonight. And I'm sure she's going to speak, I would think. And you've got a county councillor here. So aside from what happens with this application, there are issues, aren't there, that need to be resolved, and you should have the support of your councillors to try and resolve those. What I will say, Chair, is I am happy to second what Councillor Yates has said, subject to officers helping us with condition wording, in that whilst I see the condition on the hookup is in there previously, and they should be doing what they're doing, when Chris said, you know, we can put it back in there, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we put it back in there and put it back on the table if we can clear that up in this application? But I do think what we've got here does improve the site. I think it improves the operation of the site. Certainly sounds like it's going to improve things for the animals that are on that site. So I am going to go with this, and I'm quite happy to go with this, but with the caveat that there are these issues that really need sorting out outside of planning. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's nothing to do with planning, the other issues. Councillor Hunter.
I'm agreeing with Councillor Yates and Councillor Moon. These are ongoing issues. I do believe in this day and age that noise pollution and air pollution should be challenged. So I'm agreeing with both of you that there should be electric hookups and enough so there's no traffic and no wagons running continuously and causing noise pollution. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sometimes I have to think who I am. I did actually give approval to start with, but there's been additions as well, and I'll go along with those additions, Mr. Chairman. So I'll go along with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Do I have any other proposals? Right, so Chris, proposals for approval, but with conditions stated by Councillor Yates, so we'd like you to put those in, please. Okay?
Yep, no problem. Additional condition requiring use of electric vehicle hookups.
Right, so we don't have any other proposals, so let's go to the vote. It's for approval with conditions about the hookups. Okay, Jodie, can you tell us the result of the vote, please?
Members have unanimously approved the application of Dunbar Preston Limited on Church Road, and that is approved with an additional condition requiring use of electric hookups.
Okay, thanks for that, Jodie. Thanks for coming this evening and speaking on that application. Okay. Have we finished with the musical chairs, ladies and gentlemen?
For the time being.
Right. Item number 9 this evening. Again, it's AB InBev, also known as Budweiser, at Kewardale Lane, Samlesbury. It's like Groundhog Day. Right, Debbie, if you'd like to make the presentation as brief as you can, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, InBev Brewery at Samlesbury, an established employment site. They're undergoing a period of major redevelopment, and this forms part of that scheme. The proposal site is adjacent to woodland, and here at the front is the new HGV yard. Now that's halfway through construction, so the end result will be screened by woodland that's been approved for the HGV scheme. The application is a proposal for a tented warehouse for the storage of drinks products. There are several of the same on the site. They're gradually trying to cover the external storage area and regularise the building design. Be 30 metres by 85 metres and around 10 metres high as per the existing buildings. And as I said earlier, landscaping provided is part of the wider development scheme. I can't get into the site for photographs because of the ongoing work, but this is an old photograph of the same thing. They're sort of a dark brown clad and they've got a tented roof. We've no objection from statutory consultees or neighbours, and we would ask for approval with conditions. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much for that, Debbie. Does Dominic Page want to address the committee or not?
Evening, Chair. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I don't intend to speak for the full 4 minutes. It was just to say that we welcome the recommendation and the conditions, and I'm available to answer any questions if members have any.
You could answer a question. You could answer a question that I have for you. Could you not put all your applications into one big one and just let us have it done with?
I wish I could for my own benefit as well, but yeah, apologies that they come in dribs and drabs.
Yeah, just wishful thinking on my part. Right, okay, let's go open up to committee and Councillor Yates.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I welcome this application. This company's been a good neighbour for the residents of Samlesbury. They spent a lot of money getting the vehicles off the highway and put a big wagon park on there. So I'd like to move the application with the conditions, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Yates. Councillor Smith.
I'll second that, Chair. Thank you.
Do we have any other proposals? Is Councillor Moon nodding? Do you have another proposal, Councillor Moon? Okay, so without any other proposals, Councillor Yates has moved approval. Councillor Smith has seconded it. Let's go to the vote, please. Okay, Jodie, if you could read out the results of the vote.
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of AB InBev Limited, and that's approved subject to the conditions in the report.
Okay, thanks.
We could have asked for a tour of the brewery, Chair.
Or at least a topping out ceremony.
All right, less joviality, please, this evening. All right, item number 10 this evening is the Old Mill Industrial Estate at School Lane in Bamber Bridge. And it's Debbie to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Old Mill Industrial Estate is off School Lane and Brindle Road. It's been in industrial use for around 40 years in a variety of forms. To the north, we've got residential, commercial and retail properties on School Lane and Ashworth Street. In the east, I forgot which was my east and west then. In the east are dwellings and a preschool nursery off Brindle Road. West, we've got Rainsford Timber and a partially constructed commercial building, and there is residential on Skipton Close. And to the south, there are dwellings on Collins Road North and the Crescent. They're separated from the main industrial site by a deep grass bund. There's gated access to both School Lane and Brindle Road, and the whole site's secured by metal fencing. To the centre of the site, there are several blocks of commercial industrial units. Now, they're a range of size and age, and the older ones are in pretty poor condition. The modern ones are more uniform and better constructed. On this southern boundary, this southern bunded verge, there was a previous approval for 166 self-storage units, and that needs to be taken into account. It's not been implemented, but it was approved. There are also a number of communal parking areas all the way around the site. The yellow line is the circulatory route, and that will be retained. Proposal refers to two sites. For the purposes of this application, we've got the grass bund, which is site A, and an area to the north, just inside the School Lane entrance, more or less, and that's site B. The plan is, or the proposal is, to replace the old buildings in site B, to redevelop that area, and to erect new units on the grass bund, which is site A. In total, there will be 7 terraces of industrial units ranging from 45 to 235 square metres floor space. Landscaping plan has been provided, and there is some loss of trees and low-level amenity in the form of the grass verge. It's not possible to mitigate all of that on site. Some tree planting has been agreed with our arborist, and he's happy with the scheme. But if we did mitigate all on site, then the developable area would become unviable. So in lieu of that, a payment for off-site biodiversity enhancement has been agreed. That's £20,500. That will be secured by Section 106 agreement and spent on Withy Grove Park upgrades. Withy Grove's a hop, skip and a jump away from this site, so it will benefit the local community. In terms of spatial separation, all the units are policy compliant, and the parking and yard areas for each unit are to adopted standards. Just photographs of the 2 site accesses. As you can see, they're wide, well maintained, and county highways have no issue on access, highway or parking grounds. Okay, starting with site A, this is the site viewing south. The grass bund is the proposal site. There are houses to the rear, and while separation distances are policy compliant, the bund will be removed, and boundary arrangements have been proposed which are acceptable to us in design terms and to environmental health from a noise perspective. There is a update sheet before you, which the original recommendation was that we were waiting for an environmental health response. We've had that since. The update sheet provides you with that information, but also for an additional condition with regards to acoustic fencing, which we'd like to go in prior to first occupation of site A units, not the whole site, the site A units. The proposal on site A, just for context, that's a view of the estate road, and site A is on the right-hand side. This is the exit onto Brindle Road. The proposed units for site A are 3 blocks of 3 terraces, in total 15 individual units. The side and rear elevations of both site A and site B are virtually the same, blank elevations with fire exits more or less. And whilst you probably can't see it, at the rear of all of these units there is an orange line. It is there, I promise you it is there, but they're the acoustic fence that's been proposed and environmental health have accepted. That's what the condition on your update sheet refers to. The second area is site B. These old buildings here and some around the corner, which I'll show you in a sec, and this car park area. The existing units, and I do apologise for the second photograph, it's a bit out of kilter, but it was difficult to get them all into one frame. As you can see, they're old buildings, they're in bad condition, and they're not suitable for modern modern commercial activity. Again, these are the proposed Site B units, before blocks similar to those of Site A. We've had one objection from a resident, that's in your report. Economic Development Team supports the units and they've confirmed that this size and style of unit are in high demand in the borough, so they're very supportive. With no other statutory objections subject to conditions, and as mentioned earlier, the environmental health comments are now resolved subject to that additional condition. So the recommendation would be to delegate to Chair, recommend for approval, delegated to Chair to allow completion of Section 106 legal agreement for the off-site financial contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your report, Debbie. Just going back to part of it, you said the Section 106 monies would be spent where? With the Grove Park. Okay, thanks for that. And the residents who live behind the bund, they have been consulted and we've had one letter, is that it? Okay, thanks, Debbie. All right, we don't have any registered speakers. One of the ward members is on committee and the other ward member hasn't. We have the applicant or agent, Paul Batho. If you'd like to come and make a representation, you have 4 minutes, okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm Paul Batho. I'm Senior Development Manager with Stenprop. We're the applicant. This scheme will deliver 44 new flexible commercial units on a well-established employment site. The units are small, they're 500 square feet upwards, so they're not big sheds. Old Mill has been at the heart of the community in Bamber Bridge for over a century, giving rise to considerable employment, and at its height, it supported a scale of built form and employment that far exceeds what's on site today. The site is brownfield, it's both accessible and well established for this type of use. We bought this site in 2018, and since then we've recognised that parts of the estate were in need of upgrading, some of the older buildings that were referenced earlier on in the presentation. And we've also noted the latent demand for new accommodation that will only be satisfied by new high quality buildings being delivered on site. We're committed to this investment to deliver high quality units that will meet the demands of business occupiers. Following detailed consideration by your officers, the application is recommended for approval. And for the sake of clarity and completeness, we understand that the committee has been asked to endorse a recommendation for approval with Section 106 matters to be resolved through delegated powers. We understand that since the agenda was published, that your environmental health officer agrees that the evidence shows that the acoustic treatment that we propose will be appropriate and has no objection. It's confirmed the application has been well considered and that there are no outstanding objections from statutory consultees. With regard to highways, Lancashire County Council have confirmed no objection, and the scheme will provide for replacement trees on site where possible and for additional mitigation to allow biodiversity net gain. The committee report confirms the development is acceptable. It will deliver immediate investment through the construction of the units and permanent employment once they're built. We're aiming to get this on site as soon as May this year. The application identifies the scale of economic benefits which the scheme will deliver. 30 existing jobs will be safeguarded, an additional 100 will be created. There'll be a net boost to the local economy of about £3.2 million during the construction phase, and once built, an additional 3.8 every year. It will reduce unemployment in the 2 Bamber Bridge wards and increase business rates for the council. So in summary, this scheme will deliver major investment and employment on an allocated brownfield site. Your officer report provides analysis of key issues and recognises that with planning controls, it is acceptable in planning terms. And I would encourage the committee to follow the advice of your officers and allow this site to provide additional local employment and investment, delivering high quality buildings for this sustainable economic development. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation, Mr. Batho. Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to open this up to committee. I have Councillor Hunter, Councillor Lomax, Councillor Yates. Councillor Hunter.
Okay, I move for approval on this. I obviously know this site extremely well. It's always been industrial. The acoustic fencing is fantastic because I know where it backs onto on Collins Road North, so that's a really, really good idea. Well, very much needed. Yeah, I move for approval.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hunter. Councillor Lomax.
Yeah, I'll second it very quickly. This site's been an eyesore for quite some time, and there is work need doing. I think it'll improve the area, even though it's just industrial units, and we need more of them in South Ribble, so I move.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Lomax. Councillor Yates.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, big improvement on this site. It's modernising it up. The thing that I'm over the moon with is to see at last that the 106 money is going to be spent in Bamber Bridge, not anywhere else. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councillor Yates. Do we have any other proposals? No. I hope Mr. Bathor's got his pen ready. Right, let's go to the vote then. We have a proposal for approval, Councillor Hunter, seconded by Councillor Lomax. So let's go to the vote. Okay, Jodie, if you'd like to tell us the outcome of that vote.
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of the Old Mill Industrial Estate, and that's subject to the conditions of the report, and that the decision be delegated to the Director of Planning and Housing in consultation with Chair and Vice Chair upon the successful completion of a Section 106 legal agreement to secure a biodiversity enhancement contribution.
Okay, thanks very much, Jodie. Thanks, everybody, for that one. Thanks, Mr. Bathor. And may you be a welcome part of Bamber Bridge. I say that as a ward member. Okay. Item number 11 this evening. It's Green Lane Farm, Green Lane, Samlesbury, and it gives me great delight in letting Debbie present this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Back to cows. The site is a tract of agricultural land immediately north of Green Lane Farm, which is an established dairy farm of Green Lane. It sits in the crook of the River Darwen, which is 50 metres west and 80 metres north. Sharples Wood and Kilnwood Biological Heritage Sites span the site in the north and in the west, but the screen properties in the north from beyond the river. None of the trees will be affected by the proposal. The wider area is very open, quite secluded, other than for sporadically placed dwellings, and there's some distance from the farm. The closest is Greencourt Farm, which is 80 metres north, and it's in the Greenbelt. The proposal is for a slurry lagoon and associated engineering works. It will be approximately 100 metres from Green Lane and hidden by the existing farm complex. You wouldn't be able to see it from the street. The lagoon itself is 30 metres by 46 metres, and it's got a 10 metre wide, 2 metre high raised bund surround. The pit floor level will be 5 metres deep, and there's a metre clay liner to prevent any permeation into the ground or the adjacent river. There'll be ramp vehicles, access on one end, and stop-proof fencing around to stop anybody falling in. It's about 50 to 80 metres from the closest watercourse, and the standard is that it needs to be a minimum of 10 metres, so we're well within that distance. There is currently 2 months slurry storage on the site. The proposal allows for 800,000 gallons and aligns the farm with current legislation, which requires 6 months. So the farmer is legally obliged to have some sort of storage, and whether it's this or in some other format, it's got to go somewhere. Soil, air and ground investigation reports have been provided and assessed by environmental health as they're the experts in their own fields, and they're happy with things. We have no statutory objection, but we've had one letter from a resident. It is quite detailed, but basically it touches on residential amenity, impact on physical and mental health, the use of the access road for construction. And this is Gatecourt Farms access road, but I am told, I've not seen evidence, but I am told that the farm has a right of passage into the fields as well, and the impact on the environment and water quality. They're all discussed in the report, but for context, this is a proposed site layout and the contour levels of the site. The lagoon, which is here, will be about 10 metres lower than Green Lane, but Gatecourt Farm is 15 metres lower again, so it's 25 metres further down. The lagoon is roughly halfway down a steep sloping driveway that's the access for Gatecourt Farm. It's the proposal site viewed from the Gatecourt Farm driveway. It's beyond this tree. It's really difficult to get a photograph of this site, and I tried. And this is a proposal site viewed from Gatecourt Farm's front entrance itself. And that yellow line is the actual driveway access, and the proposal site is beyond that, about 80 metres distance. There is a really considered balance for and against this proposal. We have the needs of the dairy business to ensure compliance with legislation. The siting allows for minimal movement between the farm buildings and slurry storage. The alternatives are much further away and more time consuming for the farmer. Tree and hedgerow screening between the neighbouring residents and the proposal is possible, or in place in most of the case. From a health and environmental protection perspective, it's been fully assessed as acceptable to conditions by the council's expert, the Environment Agency and Natural England, and that includes the air quality assessment, which have been through with a fine-tooth comb. Immediately adjacent flood zones 2 and 3, but there's no recorded history of flooding, and the bank construction prevents any seepage. Conversely, it could actually assist with flood storage in an extreme emergency, because it could hold floodwater if there were real problems. And as I said earlier on, whether it's approved or not, this stuff needs to go somewhere, and it's better to be in a modern self-contained facility than it's in a pile in a corner. Against the proposal, we've got the perceived and actual impact on living conditions and amenity of neighbouring residents. The property is much lower than the lagoon, and the concerns that the proposal will lead to industrial scale farm practices out of keeping with the area. But there is nothing to intimate that that would happen. This is just to deal with what they've got to do and what they are already doing. On balance, we feel there is a justified case for enhancement of the established business. There is likely to be some loss of residential amenity, and the residents' concerns are valid, but there is no overriding evidence to prove that the lagoon would impact in terms of air quality or the environmental detriment as suggested. And discussions with the resident are made it clear that I would take the lead on air quality matters from Natural England and the Environment Agency, and they have no objections whatsoever. So without evidence to the contrary, the proposal will be that for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Debbie. Well, with no registered speakers, no ward members, and the applicant or his agent aren't here. So let's open up to committee. Councillor Hesketh.
Why me, Mr. Chairman?
Because you intimated you wanted to speak at the beginning of the application, Councillor.
No, this type of development is being forced on farmers, Mr. Chairman, for environmental reasons, to control land and river pollution. And I suppose, really, there's not a great deal to say other than that, because it will contain this slurry during the storage period and be utilised when weather's more convenient. So I go along with approval, Mr. Chairman. And we want it to be kept as green farm anyway, so I think that this will utilise that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Chair. This is in my ward, in the beautiful green belt of Samsbury. I was looking for a way that I could say that it needs deferring, but I read all the report, looked at all the environmental things, and I cannot say that I could say, you know, it'll have to be deferred. And the reason I'm saying that, Chair, is I don't know why the farmer has moved it well away from his property. Well, I do know why, and I think everybody in here knows why, and put it next to somebody else's property. It would have been better if it could have been a bit in a different location. But seeing the environmental health and everybody else, the agency, flooding, and everybody's looked at it, we cannot do anything about it. I'll second approval.
Do you still want to come in on that one, Debbie? Councillor Yates has seconded for approval. Do you still want to come in?
Yeah, just to explain, if Councillor Yates, the Slurry Lagoon would be 80 metres away from the nearest property, so it's not next to somebody else's house. And if you look at the plan on there, the main cattle shed is here. So to have it anywhere closer to the river would be a problem from a seepage point of view. And I assume, I don't know really how to put it, but they'll just shove it out the door and into the thing rather than taking it down a field.
Councillor Lomax, have you got a twitchy finger? Do you want to speak?
Just to say, I do actually know this area well and love it, and I can't see a problem with it actually going there. It might improve some of the roads around there, which are just farm roads, so hopefully it would help.
Okay, have we got anybody wanting to propose a refusal? No. Okay, so it's for approval. Let's go to the vote. Okay, Jodie, if you'd like to give us the results of that vote.
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of Green Lane Farm, and that's approved subject to the conditions in the report.
Okay, thanks for that. Moving swiftly on, item 12 this evening, 14A Liverpool Road, Penwitham. Janice, it's your turn, but I don't think this time it's going to be as rowdy.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, this application relates to 14A Liverpool Road. The property is within the Penwitham District Centre, close to the busy crossroads junction of Liverpool Road, Priory Lane and Cop Lane. So the property is one of 3 units formed from the subdivision and refurbishment of the former Booth supermarket. Permission was granted for 2 A1 retail units and 1 A3 restaurant. Unit 1 was then granted a change of use from retail to a drinking establishment at the 23rd of October 2019 Planning Committee meeting, and it became the Ginger Ale. The middle unit has remained in retail use, and the 3rd unit is a restaurant known as the 1260 Craft and Crust. A number of conditions were imposed on the change of use permission, with condition 9 restricting the hours of use of the outside area to between 11 a.m. and 6 p.m, and condition 10 requiring that tables and chairs be removed. Planning application was then submitted to vary conditions 9 and 10 to extend the hours of use of the outside area until 8 p.m. This was approved by Planning Committee in October 2020. So the proposal now is to vary condition 14 to extend the hours of opening. So condition 14 restricted the hours of use from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday to Friday, and 11 a.m. to midnight on Saturday, and 12 till 11 on Sunday. However, the premises licence allows Sunday to Thursday, 11 a.m. to 11:30 p.m, and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. So this application just seeks to bring the planning condition in line with the licensing hours, and it's recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, thanks, Janice. Isn't it wonderful that it's got a licence off the licensing committee to open till midnight, but we only give it a licence till 11? Hey, Councillor Smith, did you want to come in? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hancock.
I've no problem with this, Chair. It's just bringing this premises in line with the rest of the licensing places round about there. So therefore, I'm going to say for approval with the conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Hancock. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'll second that proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Have we any other proposals? Or Councillor Moon?
Not a proposal, and I'll be quick because we're at the end. But it does beg the question, Chair, the point you've just made, that we've got a licensing committee does one thing, planning does another. And I know why that is. We've had that explanation in the past, haven't we? But it does make you think that we often condition things for amenities, residents, blah, blah, blah. And you think, well, is it just vacuous that then really? Because licensing can do something different. I suspect it is, but it was just a point I wanted to make, because it makes you feel like, why do we put all our energy into conditioning things like this, which we do quite often, put time and effort into thinking about hours and challenging the hours, when really maybe we shouldn't and just leave it to licensing. Just a point, Chair.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I know our planning officers do a fantastic job. Whether they do in the licensing department is not is another thing, but that's not for me to comment on. I forgot. Where were we? Are you sure you want me to go? I said we could chew over this all night, didn't I? No top telly. Right, okay, we're going to the vote for approval, which was moved by Councillor Hancock and seconded by Councillor Smith. If we can go to the vote, please. Okay, Jodie, if you'd like to confirm that.
Members have voted unanimously to approve the application in respect of 14A Liverpool Road, and that's approved subject to the conditions.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of tonight's committee meeting. Thank you very much, all of you, for attending. You're more than welcome, Councillor. Safe drive home, all of you, because I don't want you falling asleep at the wheel. Oh, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I forgot to say, it's Councillor Maldonahew's birthday today. Birthday to you. There you go. 64.